Greetings, my people, my people, my people. Mi pueblo, my people. Oh man, I love my people. This is your boy, Adeleke, Eric L., sometimes known as. And I am coming today with you for part two of my Dreams Bigger Than Your Window podcast pilot. For the title of the episode is Dreams Bigger Than Your Window Part 2. That's the title of the episode. But this is the Tax Guy Buys Cars pilot. This pilot is going to be a 4-part pilot series. It's going to be be 4 episodes in the pilot. And really the point of the 4 episodes of the pilot is to kind of set up a framework for what it is that we're doing, why I'm doing it, kind of do a little expose of the equipment that I'm using, because not only am I experimenting with podcasts, I'm experimenting with this equipment, this particular setup. I got a pretty cool setup. It's a pretty high-end setup on a budget, but I like it, and I'm enjoying learning it, as I do with technology in general. You know, as a technophile, I tend to have fun with technology. I tend to have fun learning new technology. And today I want to pick up on the Dreams Bigger Than Window, or Dreams Bigger Than My Window podcast. So last time I kind of introduced you to the idea of dreams bigger than my window. So I learned this concept while at the university at UT in Austin. And it's this general idea, man, I heard it in a sermon actually, that sometimes we have dreams bigger than our window. What does that mean? It means that we have ideas that are larger than the utility in front of us, larger than the framing of accessible framing right in front of us. We have dreams that expand our immediate accessible vision. And a lot of times people give up on those dreams because they're so big. I myself have had a dream like that. I have had several. Like I discussed in part 1 of this series, and one of those dreams that I had was owning my own radio station. Back in '96, I was a young person, worked at the university radio station so that I can learn more about broadcast radio, learn a little bit more about audio engineering, because as a computer engineer and somebody who knew about radios and electromagnetism, fascinated with all that stuff, I wanted to know a little bit more about the business of radio and what went into broadcasting. So I did that, but then I quickly learned around that same time in '96 is when the decentralization of broadcast radio the legislation to decentralize broadcast radio came in, and that basically squished my dream, because that meant that starting a new shoebox radio station in the late '90s, early 2000s was a it wasn't happening. You know, the new laws was allowing for big corporations to come in and gobble up licenses and gobble up small operations, and it just changed the landscape. But at that same time, around that same time, the emergence of the internet took off. Now, the internet was already in play in the early '90s, but '96 moving into 2000 and all the way into today, the internet has completely changed the landscape as far as communication, as far as broadcast, as far as sharing ideas in large groups of people. It has completely changed the game. Not only has the internet changed the game for media production and media sharing and broadcasting and that sort of thing, it has also changed the game as far as creation and infrastructure development and infrastructure design with the advent of AI. Like I mentioned in part 1 of this conversation, Dreams Bigger Than My Window, when the internet came about and I saw what the internet was doing with handheld devices, the invention of the iPod and the creation of the concept of podcasting, my vision, my idea, my dream to own a radio station was kind of reignited when I learned about podcasts. Like maybe this will be a way for me to do it, but still then I didn't immediately jump on it. I'm the kind that I really need to be comfortable with what it is I'm doing and kind of work out the kinks. And still too, even then in the early 90s, equipment wasn't as available as it is now. And today, I'm actually able to sit here, talk to you by way of podcast, complete setup that I built. I call it a pop-up podcast. Tax Guy Buys Cars is a pop-up podcast. And I'm able to pull out of a box, multi-camera system, multi-camera setup, control it, the audio, everything right here from my seat. One-man show. Never before has this intersection of technology and opportunity ever existed. And here I am, so grateful for the opportunity to see this dream that I've had that's bigger than my window being condensed by technology and opportunity. And I'm right here in it, and you get to share this excitement with me. So, again, I'm one of those that have ideas, and a lot of times I share them with other people, and they don't always get the vision, and that's okay. And that's one thing, too, about having dreams bigger than your window. Whenever you want to go out and talk to other people and try to garner up support and gather together those resources, it's common that everybody ain't going to understand what you're talking about. And even if they do feel your excitement, even if they do really kind of like chime in on, wow, this guy is really excited and I feel his excitement, that happens with me a lot. Still, the concepts of what it is I'm trying to do and how I'm going to do it sometimes get lost. And until people can see, and that's when you start to get more support. If you build it, they will come. That's that old Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And so that's what we got going here, episode 2 of this podcast. The eventual intention of the podcast is for this to be a pop-up podcast, for us to be able to take this podcast on the road. I want to be able to go out in places, talk about the culture, talk about car culture, and where, from my vantage point, from the cultural lens that I sit at, the cultural seat that I sit at, in the neighborhoods that I drive through, and the people that I share experiences with, I want to talk about car culture, and that's going to be everything from those times when we used to sit in the 90s riding around, the boom, boom, boom in the back, knocking out our eardrums, to candy paint, trues and vogues, turning big corners, road rage, but all the way to the economics associated with car culture. Businesses that are available, accessible at a ground level, ways where we can take $5,000 and turn that $5,000 into a $1,500 a month income. In ways that we can also build out larger businesses. Well, I want to talk about the garage and custom cars and the artistic expression and the engineering and innovation that goes into that. And I want to even talk about trucking, shipping, logistics, everything that has to do with the road and the way we apply our cultural reality to the road. It's a lot, but it'll be fun, I believe. Well, I'm going to have fun. That's a fact, because I love experiencing new technology. I love talking about the things I like to talk about, and I'm hoping that you enjoy it with me. Now, here's the thing. Why the name Tax Guy Buys Cars? All right. Do you remember In Living Color? In Living Color was the bomb. It was the show back in the 90s. I used to love that show. And there was a skit in Living Color with these Jamaicans. I related to these guys because they reminded me of my own people. Now, we weren't Jamaican directly. You know, my people's primarily from Louisiana. My father's people anyway, but we owned car garages. But my grandfather, my dad, and my uncles, they all worked in the refineries. I'm from a town that's big on refineries, one of the largest refineries towns in the U.S., Port Arthur, Texas. That's where I'm from. So my people worked in the refineries. Everybody did. But my dad's people, we also worked on cars. I rebuilt my first engine when I was 12. So I've been around cars my whole life. And that's why I relate back to car culture. I got introduced to rap music in UGK at the backseat of a Cadillac. Roxford Fosgate, 12, bumping, what's my guy's name? Jodeci. Oh man, even to this day, I can still feel fiending rattling my spine, right? So this is it. But that skit in Living Color, it was the Jamaicans, right? You got 2 jobs, man. You're a lazy man. And that the joke in that skit was that Jamaicans wanted to be involved in all these businesses. They had all these businesses. And my grandfather used to call me a jack of all trades when I was a kid all the time. But when he called me that, I was like, oh, it didn't even really bother me when I was a little kid. It bothered me a little bit because I didn't know exactly what he meant. But when I got older and Living Color came out, I associated being a jack of all trades with that skit. And I respected the Jamaicans in that joke because they had multiple streams of income. They was a tax man, a cab man, a shoe shine man. Okay, well, I'm not shining no shoes. But not to say that I wouldn't, because it's a respectable gig and a way to get that bread. But that's how I got to Tax Guy Buys Cars. I literally was a tax guy. And for a few years, while I was learning the real estate business, I did taxes. Taxes is a seasonal business, so you can only do taxes when you can do taxes. That's between January 15th and April 15th. After that, tax prep season is over. I didn't start learning more about tax planning until I got a little bit older, but at that time, that's what I had. And so once tax season was over, I had to get back to work. I had to find something else to do. I've done computer support, and that's a hustle that I do on the side. I got back into flipping cars and getting into trucking, and all the money that I would make from taxes supported that. And so when I decided to do this podcast, I was like, how can I tell the world that I'm a jack of all trades and accept it and wear it as an honor badge, a jack of all trades? And that's why I came up with Tax Guy Buys Cars. Okay. So another thing, as I say, I'm a technophile engineer by training. I've built cars. I've built computers. I've worked with electronic companies, semiconductor companies. I've worked with Dell and Microsoft and Apple Computer, building computers, doing quality assurance in various processes. But I've also worked in sales and technical support in a wide range. So I literally am that character in A Living Color. I got all them jobs, man. And so I want to share my breadth of experiences in a way that's fun, where I can poke fun at myself and have fun in the process of poking fun at myself. So with that being said, I want to share with you another major development in technology. In addition to this podcasting equipment that I'm using right now, I want to share with you another significant development in technology that's allowing me to get a little bit closer to that big dream I told you guys about, having my own radio station. Now, of course, I'm not looking at broadcast radio anymore because that ship has sailed, so to speak. But what could be done in broadcast radio is still available in multimedia, social media, etc., and platform as service. Now, platform as service is a concept that where a business develops an internet-based platform and provides subscriptions as a service to that platform. And it could be done for all sorts of things. It could be done for t-shirt making. It could be done for designing podcasts. It could be done for video editing. It could be done for clothes sizing. Platform as a service can be applied to so many different industries. But one of the places where it can also be applied is social media. Everybody's familiar with that. That's what we're doing right now, right? Facebook is platform as service. Now, Facebook doesn't charge its subscribers to use it, but it does make money through the service by charging ad space. But other services do, um, like Spotify, for instance, or Apple Music. There's tons of them. We're aware of them, right? That's the lane. And so when I started to learn more about platform as service and the way I said, oh, this might be a way for me to get to my radio station. Look what they're doing in these spaces. I started to brainstorm. I started to get a little bit more inspiration. But I had a resistance because while I was in school at the university, I went there for engineering where I'm supposed to be learning how to fix computers and program and all that stuff. I took a detour, got distracted, a bunch of things happened. I didn't get to my hard coding skills. Like I can code, I know how to write code, I know how to do some small platform development or more like dashboarding and that sort of thing, or writing code for Excel and or even prompts and that sort of thing for network configuration. And that's all technically coding, but it's not the kind of coding that goes into developing a platform. And so the idea is like, man, maybe I should go and relearn these skills. But then a friend of mine said to me one day, who's actually the CTO of a major, a startup fintech, he was like, no new skills, bro. And he's a little bit younger than me, but he's in the corporate space as a CTO for a fintech organization. No new skills, bro. No new skills? What do you mean by that, man? We always have to learn new skills and keep our skills sharp. He says, no, bro, not at this phase, man. At this phase, we need to learn people and processes. People and processes. Blew my mind. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And once I realized he was right, I started the road of developing my ideas around how do I engage people and processes. What does that look like for me in this age? And then all of a sudden, everywhere is AI. Now, initially, I'm resistant to AI. I ain't gonna lie. Because I'm like Will Smith in iRobot. AI is gonna take over the world and replace all the jobs, and you won't be able to tell it what to do like you think you want it to, and it's gonna be a problem, all of that. And I've resisted it. But I do use AI regularly. I use all sorts of GPS tools, which are AI-based. I use all sorts of spell correctors, which are also AI-based. I generally avoid anything that requires me to upload an image of my face or my voice or anything like that. It's just where I've been with it. But then in the process of me deciding to finally finish my degree, I took a couple of classes online. One class I took at the University of Texas where I was asked to, as a task, right? I was asked to create something new. Take the ideas that go into classics, in the classics, Greek mythology, that sort of thing, and create something new. Create a new artwork that extend these ideas, like a remix almost. So, for me, I was like, that's awesome. I love that idea. That's like jazz. It's like taking Greek mythology and applying all the concepts of freestyle jazz to it and creating something new. So initially, when I started the process, because I draw, I am an artist. That's where I started. And something along the way said, man, play with this generative AI. And so I did. I decided to go ahead on and test out the use of generative AI. Now, the next time we do this podcast, I'm going to be so much better about being able to share these tools with you directly through my podcast. But of course, in a rush, I've forgotten some connectors. So by episode 3, we'll be better, and it will get better and better and better as we progress. But by episode 3 of this pilot, we'll be able to add in a live stream into Clubhouse and a couple of other things. And I have the equipment here, but in my setup, I forgot the cables. But we'll get that together. But back to the AI. I decided to do something a little different. I decided to take the concept of Zenoa, or excuse me, Xenia. I decided to take the concept of Xenia that is discussed in Greek mythology. Now, Xenia is the concept that applied to strangers. In Greek mythology, if a person showed up at your gate, it was the philosophy of Xenia where you would show that person respect. You would bring them in, feed them, make sure that they were warm and comfortable before you begin to inquire as to who they were, where they're coming from, and why they were there. And sometimes that would happen. You would completely feed a man or a woman and then maybe even engage in a battle. In some stories, a man might come to someone's gate and they would feed them and clothe them and house them temporarily and then eventually sit down in the court to ask questions about who they were. And when they found out that they were the son of an arch enemy, they would break into fight and battle and would ensue in bloodshed and all this. And that's an aspect of Greek mythology. But the reason why you would always show that level of care and respect for a stranger at your gate is because you never knew if that person was Athena or not. Now, the Greeks believed that Athena, the goddess of war, of justice, right, might show up at your gate and test you to see how just you are to strangers, to test you to see how well you treat the least of these. That's one of the major characteristics of the Greek goddess Athena. And that's, for me, I thought that was a phenomenal idea because the Greeks in general didn't have they didn't show much respect to the feminine, whether it was in a divine sense or in women in their houses. They just didn't treat women very well. But they had such this level of, man, I better get this right when it came to Athena. And I thought that was a phenomenal concept. Now, they also looked at anyone dark-skinned as Ethiopian. And so what I decided to do was to remix a concept of Xenia. I decided that I was going to present Athena not only as a black woman, but as a centaur, a creature known to be massively powerful, skillful in battle, and a symbol of vengeance. I call it xenophobia, right? Now, this particular image I used generative AI. As a matter of fact, I used about 3 different generative AI tools to develop this image. And this was my breakthrough in AI. Initially, I had difficulty getting an image that worked. But what I did was I took some sketches and I combined them together using clip art, scanned that in, fed that in some instructions to the generative AI until I got images that worked for my taste. Then I went to another AI tool and I said, hey, this particular AI tool will take a plethora. I took all of the images that I'd worked together, all the ones that didn't work, all the ones that were close but not right or not even close at all. I took them all, put them in one large file, in one folder, and I told this tool, hey, take all these images and make a mosaic of them. And this was the result. So although it is technically generative AI, I used it more in this case as a paintbrush rather than having it completely create an image for me. I gave it not only guidance through my own artistry, but I also gave it guidance in the instruction, which is a very important tool set as you are working with generative AIs. Now, I also want to share another tool that I've learned about through these processes, right? And this tool is very different. It is not particularly a generative AI tool like you would with ChatGPT. This particular tool is called Manus. And Manus is an amazing platform with a lot of really amazing utility. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple of ways that I've used Manus recently, but this one in particular. I was doing a project, I'm working with a project with the Atlanta chapter of the African American Historical and Genealogical Society, the Atlanta chapter, and we wanted to see what would happen if we told Manus to do a search for a particular name in census records. And it gave a phenomenal end report. This particular tool, Manus, what it does is it opens what is called a virtual machine on your computer. So in your browser, it opens a virtual machine. If you notice here, it says, well, next time we do this, we're going to be able to see better because we're going to feed directly through the computer. But if you see right here, it says Manus's computer. Manus will open up a virtual machine, and it will process everything within the context of that virtual machine. In this particular case, I opened up my own access. I gave Manus access to my family tree with FamilySearch.com, and it went through and constructed this awesome genealogical research report for a couple of my own ancestors. I wanted to find their names in the census reports, and it did way better than I could have myself. It was effective at sorting through names that were similar and giving a pretty solid conclusion as to what specific records that these names showed up in and the references so that I could go back and confirm what it is that it found. Pretty fire. And that's using AI, that's using Manus in particular for genealogical research. Another space where I've also used Manus is to do a record of Odu-Ifa. Now, Odu-Ifa is a corpus of knowledge in the Yoruba tradition that is used by the people of Brazil in the Santeria practices, and the people of the people of Brazil in the Candomblé practice, people of Cuba in Santeria, and Puerto Rico Santeria, and of Yoruba land, Odu-Ifa, and also other parts of Western Africa. It's a corpus of knowledge called Odu-Ifa, and it has been studied, and a lot of recordings have been done about Odu-Ifa. But there was a specific story that I remembered finding, but I could not find the name. And I kept doing all these different researches, kept on doing Google searches, all different kinds of Google searches, and I kept getting results that didn't match what I knew was there. So I told the tool, hey, find this story and then give me a list in table form of all of the resources in the languages of those resources so that I can go back and confirm the various stories. And not only did it do that, it gave me a summary of the story and a complete summary of all the stories told in the context of the name that I was asking it for. This was the name I couldn't recall. I knew the name, but I couldn't recall it. It found the name and then summarized all of the stories in the Odu-Ifa that related. This process literally took the system a matter of, I think it was 10 minutes tops. And I'd been searching. I knew it was there. I knew what I was looking for was available, but I couldn't find it. I just couldn't find it again. And all the resources that I was looking at were in Spanish, and I found other resources that were English, or perhaps I'd used a translator tool to translate things that I'd found in Spanish before, because I can read some Spanish, but not fluently. Well, AI can read Spanish, and it can read Yoruba faster than I can read English. And it can read all three languages simultaneously and summarize the results of the information. Listen, if you have not found a way to use AI in your work and your research, or even in your hobbies like genealogical, family genealogy, holla at you, boy. I got you back. I got you back. Now, it's just a matter of time before I apply some of this AI tooling to car culture research and information. As a matter of fact, here's the results. I'll share one more if I can pull it up. I had one pretty awesome Google Gemini search, and this is specifically in the car culture space. Let's see if I can find it. I would love to share it with you. In the future, I'll do better about queuing this kind of thing up so that I'm not stumbling around to find it while I'm talking to you. But I think you are picking up what I'm putting down. I think you understand where I'm getting with this. These AI tools are so phenomenal. Here we go. No, that's not it. Yes, here we go. Now this is another search result that we used. This is a different tool now. This is the tool Gemini, Google Gemini. And the prompt was real simple. The prompt was, give me a list of organizations that will help me be able to ship vehicles from Atlanta into Ghana. Put it in the form of a table, give me the contact information, including URLs and phone numbers, and then also give me the ports that they go into and the type of shipper that they are. Notice all of these shippers were primarily freight forwarders. One was a logistics provider, which is essentially a freight forwarder, but they basically just get all your paperwork in order for you. And it gave me this amazing table. Not only did it give me the table, it also gave me a little bit of a glossary so that I could understand each term that's being used in the table. This cut down my work by at least a couple of hours because the client needed a list. The client is looking to, one of the services I provide is purchasing vehicles for small businesses that use vehicles. This particular client wants to lease vehicles similar to what we do like Uber, and because they have Uber overseas as well, but they want to be able to lease vehicles for drivers that want to drive Uber or that want to do airport shuttling. And this is an American investor who wants to buy vehicles stateside, export them into Ghana, and then set up a business Ghana side for leasing those vehicles, and to cut down the amount of research, to cut down and to trim down what needed to be done so we have the proper information. We use some generative AI to get that work cut down phenomenally. This client asked me for the information, expected that I actually set their expectation that I already had it compiled, which I don't necessarily like to do that, but I set their expectation that they would have it relatively quick. And it wasn't completely invalid that I had it compiled already. I did have a list compiled, but it wasn't this comprehensive. my list was a lot shorter than this and not nearly as detailed. But I took the general idea and the concept of the prompt, went into generative AI, specifically Google Gemini, and bada boom, bada bing, came up with something phenomenal that they were like, wow. Gave them the impression that we're one step closer to their goal. So this is what I mean when I say the tools to shrink down or to expand. You can look at it more than one way. You can look at it as if these tools are shrinking because they're making a lot of the processing. The technology is making it more accessible. So in a way, it's making what is framed smaller, or it's expanding the framing of what it can be done with just smaller resources. Fewer resources, greater impact. Now your window is so much bigger, closer to your dreams. So anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. This is podcast number 2. We're going to do more of these, and eventually we'll do pop-up versions of the podcast where we're out in the field looking at cars and talking to different business owners at different shops about their business processes. And then also in the near future, we'll also have guests where we would talk to them, sit down, interview them about their businesses, how they're using these technologies and technologies like these, and also how they're using logistics in general in their business. And hopefully we have some fun with it. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sitting through this with me. And till next time, be blessed.